sometimes, yeah, it all depends, but,
Usually it's about $100
oh,
a year.
they're coming and going and
Christmas
coming.
and this
We
and
should
that.
just, we should just cut a check.
Morning.
Morning.
Jan, Ron.
That would be about the
Morning, Bob.
best thing, so you can deduct it.
It's, yeah, it's,
Hello,
yeah.
Bob. I hope you keep this on schedule. I gotta leave by 9:30.
I want to schedule a building.
You might get the sheriff's report.
We might get the pledge of allegiance done. I'm just kidding, I'm staying.
Commissioner Wilson, I gotta talk to you about, you're on the airport board, right?
I am. If it's about planes, I know nothing.
That's what it's about. I says, I don't know anything, I don't think we can do much about the FAA.
They're pretty strict on what's what. You know, Randy, Greg Kimmin, the city is the guy to talk to
Right.
about something that,
That's what I figured. Cause he, what's Tom's last name?
Olson?
Yeah, I said,
No, Greg Kimmin is the guy to talk to, yeah. That's it is. Tom's really just the manager of,
he's like,
Not if you ask Tom.
no, I understand, but Greg Kimmin is the one that knows the rules and regulations, and Tom probably does too, but.
What did you get, the dump truck taken care of? Good.
did answer that, I brought up Greg Kim.
Yeah, Greg is the guy that. Runway?
We got 1 minute. It's an airplane
And I kinda figured.
Oh,
Yep.
but you know, if you talk, not you, but talk to Greg and Greg talks to him, they'll probably go a different way. It must be the pattern that he's in for teaching,
It's got a history.
you know, and so,
Oh,
but honestly, if a guy would probably ask him, he'd probably, okay, if somebody don't like it, I'll move it around.
I think that was from last week's.
Just like that.
He's really busy out there too.
Glad you did
If
that.
they don't get approved, then we'll take them back. Yep.
That burn barrel.
Nothing.
All right.
I've actually said that a lot. Like, could somebody just burn my house?
Well, it sometimes depends on the air and the wind where they gotta land, but still, I'm sure he could go or do something different.
Morris County Board of Commissioners will come to order. Please stand and join us in the saying of the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands,
one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning, Mr. Chair.
Approval of county board minutes.
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Jelinski,
Second.
second by Commissioner Wilson to approve the board minutes. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Additions or deletions to the agenda? Commissioners?
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Wilson, second by Commissioner Wincher. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. First item on the agenda today is Sullivan Lake Improvement District. Welcome. If I could have you state your name for the record, please?
When you're speaking, if you wish, you don't have to, you can remove your mask.
You can remove your mask when speaking.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm Ken Jensen. I'm with Sullivan Lake Improvement District.
Morning, Ken.
Good morning. What can we do for you today? What kind of questions do you have? I gave you copies of our minutes. Our treasurer, Dean Johnson, is also available for questions.
Okay, and maybe if you just want to kind of go over your proposed budget for us. And,
Dean, you want to handle that?
Good morning.
good morning. Dean, you said?
Yes, Dean.
All right, good morning, Dean.
The proposed budget is set up without any money from the county or our LSA association, because we do not know what monies that we bring in for that. So I set it up without anticipating any money. That's why you see the negative accounts. We lost our gambling commissioner, and we just got set up again for gambling. And so far, even with COVID, it is doing well. So we're hoping for 2020, 2021, be able to have money from gambling given back to SLID. So at this time, we are just asking for the same assessment as we had last year. Because we can, even with no money from the county or LSA, we can pay our bills for 2021.
Chair, can I ask a question? It's the association that receives the gambling funding that then contributes, right?
Correct.
Okay, just wanted to make sure.
What is your assessment per property owner?
100,
$100?
yes.
Okay.
Yeah, $100 here, and 25,500 it brings in, right?
Yep. Well, it brings in, is that where the 11,250 comes from?
The 25,500.
Oh, there it is.
Because
Yep, I got it.
there's
Yep.
right around 256 properties.
I got her now.
Taxable properties on the lake.
Yeah, I guess there's not much more questions.
Commissioner Wincher.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Question I have, again, it says, budget and assessment amount, board agreed to lead the current assessment. I'm assuming this was an annual meeting that they voted on, or is it just the board that makes that decision?
It was an annual meeting.
Okay. Thank you.
That was August 23rd, I believe.
That answers my question.
And Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Jelinski.
if I may, at that annual meeting and you came up with $100, was that pretty much a unanimous type of a thing? I mean, never unanimous, usually never unanimous, but was it pretty much leaned heavily that way?
Yes, it was. We really didn't want to raise with COVID right now.
Yep,
We
yep.
wanted to try and make it as is.
Okay.
So yes, it was unanimous.
Oh, very good, thank you.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to accept the budget for Lake, Sullivan.
Mr. Chair, if I could, that motion would be the budget and then that levy assessment that they have.
And
And the levy.
I'll second that.
Motion by Commissioner Wincher, second by Commissioner Wilson to accept the Sullivan Lake Improvement District budget and levy amounts.
And charge, let's use that language, the charge. I'm still getting used to that.
Discussion? All in favor?
Yes, Mr. Chair, we'll have to write this
Oh.
motions out.
This will be a roll call. Commissioner Wincher.
Aye.
Commissioner Jelinski.
Aye.
Commissioner Blaine.
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson.
Aye.
Myself, aye. Motion carried. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you so much.
Thank you
Thank you
very
very
much.
kindly.
You guys, good luck. Thanks.
Next on the agenda, Shamina Lake. Lake Improvement District Annual Budget. Morning, Rick. Morning, Cindy.
Good morning.
Cindy?
Mr. Chair, members of the board, I'm Cindy Kevern, the Chair of the Lake Shamina Lake Improvement District. I have Rick Rosar here today, as well as Artis Sandstrom and Bob Cole, so we're well represented. I'd like to give a quick update on activities over the last year and what we see in the coming year, as well as looking for approval of our budget. As you know, last summer, we were looking at an infiltration plan for our water removal. Over the fall and winter last year, we worked hard on that plan and trying to get something to work with it. But this spring, we learned that we were not able to obtain the flowage easements that we would be needing in order to make that plan work. So in June, after considering many options, we made a decision to begin the review of a project that would include a west outlet, utilizing the newly cleaned ditch to Fish Track Creek, and execute an agreement with Houston Engineering to conduct outreach and system capacity analysis. So in June through August, Houston Engineering conducted preliminary surveys, gathered data, looked at route alternatives, came up with some preliminary costs, and we were able to come up with a plan to present to our members at our annual meeting for the west outlet. We've also had meetings with the Todd County property owners along the route. In fact, there's a meeting this afternoon with a couple of key property owners. We've had many meetings with the DNR. We've been meeting with the local DNR folks almost weekly, which has been very helpful. We keep them up to date on what we're doing. They also give us good advice on things that we should be looking at. We've also had a meeting with Todd County ditch staff, as well as county commissioner and the county administrator. We also had an informational meeting on August 6th through Zoom, an online meeting for our property owners so that we could inform them on the project. The Houston Engineering completed an engineer's conceptual report in August, and we have it posted on the LID website. And that report includes the data and survey information from the work that they did, as well as a map of the proposed route. In moving a little bit, AIS, Aquatic Invasive Species, we did some work this year, same work as we've done in previous years with chemical treatments and pulling. But interestingly, one thing that is kind of note is that our AIS program has been very highly successful in controlling the Eurasian water milfoil. In fact, in a recent lake-wide survey, only one plant was found. Now, the problem is it's right by where I live, but only one plant was found on the south side of the lake. And we included a map that showed basically they review and survey the whole lake and only found this one plant. So they obviously treated for the plant and then did hand pulling. The other good news we have is they did a lot of survey of our lake this year for zebra mussels and have not found none. So that's good news for us as well. We've worked real hard on communications. We've had several mailings to our property owners. We've had several board meetings which are held online, and we do get an audience at each of our board meetings. In June, we sent a mailing announcing the opening of nominations. We did receive 3 nominations for 2 open seasonal seats, and 1 nomination was received for the 1 permanent residency seat that was open. We also, this year, had some new processes. We adopted new bylaws that conform to the new establishment order and state statutes. And then kind of the big thing that we did this year is we started a whole different process for our ballot, our voting system. As you know, because we weren't going to be able to do an online, or in-person annual meeting, it was gonna be online. And we knew that it was gonna be a struggle in terms of how are we gonna receive the ballots, open them, all of that. So we looked around and found survey and ballot systems out of Eden Prairie. They actually do the CTC voting, that's how we found them. And they administered the budget and director voting process. So SBS is their name. They actually mailed the ballot information out to each property owner. That allowed each property owner to make a choice to either mail back the ballot or they could vote online. And then SBS did all of the tally work for the voting. So it actually worked very well. In fact, they did a survey and found got very high marks from the people that had used them. The annual meeting was held online with no in-person voting allowed. Because we wanted to give people some time after the annual meeting to vote, we actually closed voting a couple days later, so it was closed on August 31st. And interestingly enough, we had about the same number of votes as last year. I think it was like within 2 or something like that. And I did include a vote tally as well. And we had 4 budget questions. The first one was on the non-project budget of $30,000. 84% voted yes, 193 to 37. Number 2 was AIS budget of $30,000. 88% voted yes, Number 3 was the high water project, which we'll talk about in a minute, of $265,000. 77 voted yes, 77% voted yes, I should say. And number 4 was to establish the project to construct an outlet, and 74% voted yes. That's the highest rate of yes votes that we've had so far, so that was interesting. And then on the directors, we had, as I mentioned, 3 candidates for 2 open seats. 2 of the people that were running were Fred Combe and Rick Rosar, who were the incumbents. They won with gathering the most votes. And then in the permanent director seat, actually was my seat, we had 1 candidate, Tim Rice, who will be a new member to our board, and he obviously received the most votes of 210 votes, so he was elected to the board. And back on other things that were new this year, we are looking to receive another DNR grant in the amount of $52,000. We also are hoping for the bonding to be approved, which would allow us to get bonding money or DNR flood mitigation grant monies to help us with the high water project. We also received from the DNR a letter of appreciation, which I enclosed, so that was a nice thing for them to do. I've actually been told that's very uncommon for the DNR to do, so it was kind of nice to receive that. And then on other projects, we had Rick Rosar and Artis Sandstrom has been working with the Emergency Task Force. They're working and helping with the Turn Off the Faucet project, and also working on additional ideas for emergency efforts. So we have some emergency pumping planning going on with that as well. Looking forward to 2021, we have, as I mentioned, the 2021 budget for non-project plans, which is really just our insurance, water quality testing, etc. And then the AIS, the budget amount is $30,000, which is primarily just for that chemical treatment, hand pulling, surveying work that we do. And we also want to thank the board for the money that we've received from Morrison County to help us with, to offset those costs. And we also, I should mention on the AIS, have an ambassador program where we have people we had 1 landing this year because 1 was closed, but we at the landing to assist with education for the AIS. Of course, we have the high water project coming up, and we have really 2 budgets for it. One is for our 2021 pre-construction budget, and within that, we would work on the route and work with property owners to obtain those flowage easements, work with Todd County for the approval of the petition for the usage of Ditch 41, complete planning, design, EAW, permitting process. We have some soil borings and soil investigations that we need to do. We would finalize the engineering plans, specifications, bid documents, get it all ready for bidding for the construction, and then finalizing that permitting. So all of that work basically makes the project shovel ready, and that budget is $265,000. And then, of course, we have the construction budget, which would include the construction of the outlet, construction engineering, utility relocations and services, all of the legal, fiscal, administrative work that would need to be done. And our estimated cost for that construction is $3,350,000. And I enclosed a timeline as well. It's a hopeful timeline, I will say. It assumes that we get a lot of the permitting and approval processes done by early next summer, so May, June, so that we could start construction in the summer and potentially be pumping in late fall. So that's all I have for today. If you have any questions for us.
Any questions, commissioners?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
you did a good job on your presentation here, and I'm glad to see what you got here. But, you know, when a guy's doing the high water project budget pre-construction, isn't the real thing here is we gotta make sure that Todd County will take the water?
Yes.
And why wouldn't that be the very first step, that we get that approval to go somewhere before we spend a bunch of money to find out? You understand what I'm saying?
Yes, and it's a very good question and asked a lot by our members.
Yeah.
And the answer really is that we are working on that first. So we're there's actually meetings today with Todd County property owners to try to settle on those flowage easements. And we're also working on getting that petition to Todd County. So we're doing, how can I answer this? We're doing as much work as we need to do now so that we can answer those engineering questions for those property owners and for Todd County. But we're not doing any more until we get that approval.
Okay, because I would think, and I don't know I know what you need here, but I would just think if I was Todd County, and I would want to say, yes, you can do something, providing we're within these guidelines of something, so that when you go through the rest of this, you know you could dump it there when you do
Yes,
that.
that's
So,
exactly right.
Okay, sounds good, thank you.
I just want to commend you on the ability that you had for individuals to vote. That was a great idea that you had, and it seems like it's obviously 84%, 88%, 77%, and 74% speaks highly on what the individuals that voted wanted. So our job here is to make sure that you did the process right, and it seems to us that you did the process right. It doesn't matter what we think or feel or whatever, but I think you're doing a good job. And did I hear you're stepping down?
Yes, I am.
You'll
So
be
I'm-
missed.
Yes, I will. I've offered to continue to help with transition, but yes, I will no longer be on the board. So next week, there'll be a board meeting to elect officers, so, yes, I guess you could say I'm really retiring now, maybe.
Yeah, yeah. I'm sure they'll still be calling you quite often for advice, but, and I just want to say, I thought the Zoom, of course, virtual meetings aren't as good as face-to-face meetings, but as far as that Zoom meeting that you guys had, you couldn't get gotten any better than that, so appreciate
Thank
that too. Gave me something to do at work. Any other questions? Commissioner Jelinski?
Mr. Chair, thank you. Cindy, I just want to commend you.
Thank you.
I'll just get right to the point. Thank you for your time, your service that you've done. Agree, disagree, and I know that things have not always been exactly smooth, glass on the water, if you want to say, or anything like that. But the presentations that you've always been involved in, right, wrong, good, bad, ugly, indifferent, have always been very professional. Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate that a lot. Nothing personal, Rick, but I was looking at it.
Commissioner Winter?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Cindy, again, I like this concept of how you let people vote, because I'm assuming there may be, I don't know how many registered voters on Lake Shamana, 300-400. So it's not an excuse they couldn't make it or they couldn't get
Right.
there. I know that you guys probably contacted them tenfold to say this vote is coming up, so I agree with our chairman that this process is done and you show the votes and go on with your project and see what happens, because you can't, the numbers don't deny what the people at Shamana want, so thank you for that.
Thank you.
So gentlemen, I need a motion, a second, to approve Lake Shamana's budget and charge.
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Commissioner Wilson,
Second.
second by Commissioner Winter. Discussion? This will be a roll call vote. Commissioner Jelinski?
Aye.
Commissioner Blaine?
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson?
Aye.
Myself, aye. Commissioner Winter?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you. Thank you for all the help over the year. Thank you, Deb.
Thanks, Cindy.
Nice article, Bob. Nice picture.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
That was my wife's picture.
Yeah. Next on the agenda, Sheriff Larson, Sheriff's Report. Or no,
Yes.
resolution to approve the TZD
Oh, yes.
towards zero death grant. Morning, Sheriff.
Morning, Sheriff.
Morning, Sheriff.
Morning. Wish I could leave this on because I cut myself shaving, but
Nice.
Could have said it was a fight or something, you know?
so we're gonna do the resolution first, if that's okay.
Yes.
And so what it is, it's just basically looking for a signature from the chair so we can, our office can work with the Minnesota Department of Public Safety for the purposes of October 1, 2020 through September 30th, 2021. So we can do TZD, which is just traffic enforcement. And I believe we were awarded $14,650. So once we get that signature, we'll be able to do our waves throughout that fiscal year and seek reimbursement for the purposes of having Morrison County deputies as well as small-town police departments work these traffic enforcement waves.
I'll move on this, Mr. Chair.
Motion by Commissioner Jelinski. Second by Commissioner Blaine. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you on that, Sheriff.
And then, yeah, the monthly report. So, overall, it's been a busy month. The first picture we got is Amy Brill. She's a sergeant in our jail, one of 4 sergeants. And in this picture, in this photo, she actually received an award through the MSA ICLD, which is the Institute for Credible Leadership. It's a volunteer program. All the courses are online. It really focuses on leadership, developing leadership skills, morals, ethics, things of that nature. So she did this all on her own time. There's probably 300 plus hours that go into it. So we're just happy to see employees taking advantage of this program. Initially, when this was rolled out, there was a fee assigned to it, but we worked with Sourcewell early on, and they covered our costs in our region. So we're happy for that as well. Looking at our numbers, we'll kind of skip down, we'll go to training, and then we'll focus on the overall 2-year comparison chart later on. But for training, we had 18 officers attend firearms training. So every month, we're trying to do some form of training for the sheriff's office. If it's not shooting rounds downrange, it's actually just working on things that are brought to our attention that need to be focused on. In this case, we did some tourniquet training, where if another officer is shot, how to apply a tourniquet on them. If you're shot as an officer, how to apply your own tourniquet. So there's different stress-induced tactical training that we always do just to stay on top of the curve, if you will. And that's what we did last month for the month of August. Looking at our criminal complaints, I'll just highlight that in the 12 o'clock position, 11%, the blue pie chart, we had 8 assaults. We noticed in this case we had 5 domestic assaults, which is a rise overall. Normally we get a couple, but like I said, this time was 5 domestic assault related. Without going to each case, I can tell you that some are still being investigated. Some were just verbal domestics, I guess. No one actually got charged. And of course, there were some that were arrested. The 8% or the 11%, which is the orange on the 6 o'clock position, we had 8 damage to property complaints. The 9 o'clock position, you'll see 24%, the pink pie chart, or the pink color coded. We had 17 thefts. Looking into that, we had 11 which were from a building/yard. And when we looked into it and kind of dove into it, we found out that a majority of them are political signs, whether it's Black Lives Matter, Biden, Trump. It's just signs like that that are being stolen from a yard. And then we had 6 vehicle theft complaints, which would be the purple 9%. And looking into that, we had 1 auto, 1 ATV, 1 motorcycle, and then we had some tampering and some Cadillac converters. Because the Cadillac converters are on the vehicle, it got listed in that category. So any questions on the criminal complaints at all?
No.
And then moving on to our traffic citations, you can see we had 16 written warnings. That's the orange colored pie chart. And then we had 14 speed tickets, and then we had 84 verbal warnings. With that, we'll look at our 2-year comparison. So for the most part, we're back to the norm, I guess, if you want to call it the norm. The pandemic early on affected a lot of things, including our civil process. But you can see now our civil process is pretty much back up to par where we need to be. However, there's still eviction notices, there's still summons and complaints where people owe bills, where there's grace periods because of the pandemic. So those numbers may change, but as far as a comparison to last year at this time, we're right where we were. Any questions on the two-year comparison at all? As far as our jail goes, we've averaged 21 inmates in Morrison County. We did have a couple inmates from a couple different counties, which bumped our population up to 25 for an average for the month of August. And then, of course, we're starting to see some revenue. We saw that last month. We're seeing it again we saw it in July. We're seeing it again in August, that we had $7,205 for revenue collected for out-of-county inmates, which is another positive sign. Our drug cases, they've been busy. I can tell you that overall in the drug task force, August was a month where everybody pretty much amongst the team, amongst all the different counties, decided that that would be their vacation month. And they did it on purpose, making sure that everybody's back in full swing. So I can see our numbers rising in September. But overall, they were busy. They did, there were 6 controlled purchases. They deployed on over 5 search warrants. Still seeing a lot of methamphetamine predominantly in Morrison County that they're working on. And that's the majority of their cases with their buys. There's a federal case they're working on, which we're dealing with pounds of methamphetamine, which is out of the county. But of course, the target has connections to multiple counties to include Morrison County, so there's a lot of time spent on that case as well. Besides methamphetamine and heroin, we do have an agency assist where we're reviewing a pill investigation right now with ecstasy and Oxycontin. So overall, that's kind of what we're seeing. And again, everybody was kind of a vacation month, so I think we're going to see our numbers actually rise again coming up in September. Any questions for me on any of this?
Commissioners, Commissioner Jelinski?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Sheriff, I think I know the answer to this, but I'm just going to ask it anyway. Every time that you present and we talk about drugs, we talk about meth. Meth is coming in and into Morrison County. It's not necessarily going out of Morrison County because it's not being manufactured here. It's being manufactured somewhere else. I just want to get a comment if I can. Am I right or am I on the wrong page?
So majority of what we deal with methamphetamine is users in Morrison County. Now, don't get me wrong, there's a few targets that we're looking at that are distributing.
Yep.
But as far as the manufacturing goes, the information that we have at this time is that there are no, I mean, if there is an active lab, we're certainly gonna look into
Yep,
it, but we haven't
absolutely.
seen labs for a long period of time. Pretty much coming from St. Cloud and or the metro area is our local source right now for distributing.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Yep.
Commissioner Blaine?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Chair Flarson, I wanted to take a second just to address, I don't know Ms. Brill that you spoke of at the beginning of your report. I don't know her personally or really at all. But I want to tell you how much, how important that is for me, and I think I'm sure for the rest of the board too. When you share with us an employee that takes the initiative on their own, to better educate themselves personally and professionally in a manner this way, in developing their leadership skills and understanding those issues out there to help them be a better leader, a better professional, and a better person in general. And I think what you shared with us this morning, rather briefly, speaks volumes to the character of that employee of Morrison County. And I just wanted to make notation of that. And I realized, she can't, or we can't always have these employees come, but this would have been a tremendous opportunity for us to recognize her personally within the boardroom, but this is to me, this is a big deal. For the reasons I stated here too. So please pass our appreciation on to her.
I will do that, Commissioner, thank you.
Anything else, commissioners? Very good.
I think the only other thing I'll add is the memorial, just to give you an update, we're still working with Granite Works, we're still working with the installer. We're trying to finalize that date. We know that Granite Works is working on this project. They know we want to make this a priority. They know that it's going to be 55 years, October 15th. So if we could do the unveiling at that point, that would be great, and that's kind of our target point. Haven't really given it much thought what we're going to do. I think it would just make sense to do an invite to everybody who actually is partaking in this project, who donated to this project. And I know that includes includes all the commissioners and a lot of people here and a lot of people in our community. So I think just doing that and with the family being involved, that would be awesome to be able to do it on that date. So I'm working hard. We are working hard to try and make that happen. So
Great.
if there's any comments on that, just let me know.
Will do. Commissioners?
Excellent.
Nope.
How many flags did we end up with? Was it 2 or 3?
I believe there's 3. It was going to be or American flag, state of Minnesota, and POW flag. And I talked to John with maintenance, and we're pretty much going to wait for the unveiling date to make everything go live on that date with the flags and everything.
Did we do 4 like pedestals though, or not? 3 is what we decided to do, and that was it? Okay.
Correct.
Sounds good. Thank you.
There's flag poles are in there, aren't they?
Yep, and three.
Yeah, there's
So there'll be
That's what we talked.
3
Yep.
flag poles, and then there's a cylinder that will have the sheriff's stack and Andrew Hurlitz's name inscribed on it, and then there'll be a bench as well. So,
Sounds good. Thank you for doing that.
thank you.
Sheriff.
Thank you, Sheriff.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda, social services report.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, Commissioners.
Morning, Brad.
Morning, Brad.
I'm going to put our 2 guests and Karen, who's somewhat of a guest today, up here so we can be cognizant of socially distancing, and I'll sit back here. They have the report. Karen is going to start out with the SNAP report, and then we're going to have our guests from rural Minnesota SEP talk about our employment services around our financial assistance program, and they're an important partner to make sure we continue to provide self-sufficiency resources for the people we serve. So I'm going to have Karen start. I'll just be sitting back here, and I'll have Karen start, and then rural Minnesota SEP will talk. So go ahead, Karen.
Morning, Karen.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning, Karen.
Okay, starting out with Supplemental Nutritional Assistance Program, gross income limits. 130% is for normal households. Elderly and disabled are 165% gross income. Now, when I say elderly and disabled, I mean everyone in that household has to be either elderly or disabled to get the 165. Those are the gross income limits for SNAP benefits. How much does a household receive? Maximum benefit for a household of 1 is $194, household of 2, $355. We have a lot of elderly who get $16 in benefits. Since the waivers have been on in March, if they were getting $16, they actually are issued up to the maximum of $194. And that's been approved through the month of September through the state.
Karen, can you explain the $16 in benefits for me, please?
Well, it goes on how much income they get, and then it goes on what they pay for rent, mortgage, utilities. Yeah, $16, well, it helps a little. You know, it's better than nothing. Some of the elderly, at least they can buy their bread, their milk with that money. Doesn't sound like a lot, but it's better than nothing.
Commissioner Jelinski?
Mr. Chair, if I may interrupt Karen for just a second here. At the very start, and I should have asked this right away.
Okay.
At the very start, you stated, at least I understood you to say,
Okay.
everyone in a particular household has to be.
Elderly or disabled to get the 165.
So, first of all, what's elderly?
Over 55.
Okay, so once you're over 55, and I'm just gonna use a husband and wife, just for the sake of
Okay.
argument. One or the other has got a disability, doesn't make any difference. Then it's okay, because one is over 55, and one has something, an issue.
Right.
Okay, very good, thank you.
Yep.
Very good.
No
thanks.
problem. Okay, expedited SNAP applications, just have August 1st of 18 through July 31st of 20. As you can see, the applications vary. In July, we had 8 compared to 23 and 19, so they vary a lot. Application activities, August 1st of 19 through July 31st of 20. As you can see, those also vary. In August of this year, we had 189 new applications. So it varies a lot. And then SNAP state and county comparison, 7/1/20 to 7/30/120. Cases in the state of Minnesota, 188,430, Morrison County, 999. Persons, Morrison County, 1,985. You compare that to 2019, cases have gone down. Regional active SNAP cases compared to Morrison, Benton, Crow Wing, Mille Lacs, Todd, and Wadena. Every dollar spent in SNAP benefit generates $1.73 in economic activity. Households, what they cannot buy with SNAP: pet food, soaps, household supplies, vitamins, medicines, food that will be eaten in the store, hot foods. And then the out-of-state EBT report. If a client shows up on that report more than 30 days, we get notification, basically they're out of the state. So that's time to shut them down. Any questions?
Good report as always.
Thanks, Jeff.
I like it.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I really like how you show what they cannot buy.
Okay.
Because people always have, well, you know, they're buying this and that, and that kind of shows that they're not.
Right, right. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
So Samantha and Brian, if you want to introduce yourselves and then just jump into your report.
Okay, I'm Brian Gopinski with Rural Minnesota SEP.
Hello, Brian.
I don't get to see you guys as often because now I'm stationed up in Brainerd, but I still work with Little Falls, Wadena, Brainerd, and Bemidji teams. And so Samantha Freilich is our new team leader, and she's been a year under her belt now in Morrison. And they have put together the reports this year, and I think what'll be interesting to see is some of the effects that COVID has had with participation rates and things like that. It's kind of frustrating, and because Morrison County is very unique in our agency of the counties we work with. Morrison County has a couple things that stand out over any other county, and it's due to the work of the staff at the Career Force Center and what they push there compared to some other teams. So if we didn't have this COVID in here, it'd really be even more enjoyable sitting here, but it is what it is, and it's had that impact, and you'll see that as you go through. But so I want to just mention the part that's unique here is there's been this push to spend 50% of our allotted funds on things other than supportive services. We don't want this program to be just about fixing people's cars, tires, insurance, premiums, things like that, even though in many cases that's what it takes to get somebody to work or somebody to job search. We're an employment and training agency, and we want to push training and employment together. And Morrison County has hit that, and as of today, it's the only county of the 18 we work with that has hit that. And there's people in college, there's people going to work and work training, and it does consume more funds per participant. But we also have them finishing up with degrees and wonderful jobs in self-sustaining employment. So, hats off to the staff that have worked with this. And so I just want to make sure I throw that out there because I don't know that Sam would, because that's just everyday business for us. But I wanted to mention it. So Sam can go through this, and thanks for spending the time with us and inviting us in. So.
Yes, hi, my name is Sam. I'm the new team leader for the Little Falls SEP office. Our two MFIP counselors and myself really ran some numbers and to get you the most accurate information on what we're doing with the Morrison County MFIP funds. So I'm gonna go through a few of these graphs and some of the information on what we're doing today. If anyone doesn't understand one of the graphs or has a question regarding what it means, please speak up and I'll do my best to answer. Okay. So the first graph talks about our work participation rate. This is something that we definitely have struggled with the COVID impact. This strictly means, are they turning in their paperwork as required? So in a typical year without COVID, they're required to fill out their forms that shows that they're job searching, that they're going to work, that they're going to school. With that waiver that started in March, they are no longer required to turn in that information. So we do our best to still engage them and have them turn that in, but because of that lack of consequence and that lack of requirement, we are seeing a decrease and a negative impact in that participation rate. Now that doesn't mean that these people aren't working and that they're not going to school, it just means that they're not turning in the form that they normally would, because it's not affecting their benefits if they don't turn it in. So kind of looking at that is an important part of our program. But if you look at the next graph, it talks about our self-support index, and that is another crucial part. We are doing well in that. So a self-support index, this is gonna include everywhere from DWP participants, FSS clients, two-parent households, single-parent households, and it's actually going to gauge, are they working 30 hours a week or 129 hours each month throughout that whole quarter? And that is what's gonna determine if it's a positive or not. So if you look at this graph, it shows 1, 2, and 3 year. So they start taking those people on the clock as soon as they enter into MFIP. And at that 3-year mark is when they actually capture that rate. And that's what gives us our self-support index. So this is the most current self-support index that we had access to on the system. And we are currently at 74.67%, which is within the guidelines, which is great. That means people are going to work. They're working the amount of hours that they need. If you look at the next graph, we kind of just touched briefly on the closures that we have been seeing to date in MFIP and in our DWP program. So this snapshot is of the kind of the last year since we've been here. So September 1st to August 31st of this year, we've had 67 total closures, 111 total on the MFIP program. 36 of these closures were due to unsubsidized employment, which is great, or being voluntarily closed, maybe over income and they choose to close their case. Relocation, so clients moving out of the county has been 16 of those closures. And then we've had 15 that have been closed for admin separation. This might mean they ended their 60-month max, they reached that limit, or they've had a missing household report form, they are missing paperwork, things like that. As of today, our current caseload is slightly higher. We're at 54. We have seen quite a few cases close in DWP. That was, there was a requirement that DWP ended and they all flipped to MFIP. That was part of the COVID process. So we've had 6 of them actually flip to MFIP due to COVID, 6 referred to MFIP, 3 that closed into DWP due to employment, and then 1 that was lack of paperwork. So if you look on to the current MFIP caseload, that's gonna show you what we're doing with our clients that we do have on today. Of our clients today, we have 19 of them are FSS. These typically are harder to serve. They maybe require a little bit more work with them, have more barriers. Of those 19, we actually have 3 of them that are out and working right now. One of them is in college, which is wonderful. We have 9 currently in our referrals, so we're waiting for them to come in. We're trying to make that contacting and encourage them to come in so we can enroll them. 4 others that are in college, 15 that are working, and 4 that are actively job searching. So of ours working, you can kind of see on the right there, it shows you there's 15 currently employed, and we have them at a variety of different places, everywhere from Monaghan Marine as a mechanic, Riverside Assisted Living, Coburn's, Walmart, Pro Parking Lot, Driveway, all different ranges.
Can I make a comment on this part? One of the positives that COVID has thrown us, if there is such a thing,
Yes.
is in the past, we've typically had work sites that were similar, you know, school districts. A lot of schools, we had people doing custodian work or things like that. We've even had folks with the county working in IT and stuff. But with COVID, a lot of sites that have been normal sites for us, or repeat sites, if you will, they've shut that down. They haven't allowed in, you know, people from the outside to work in those areas. So it's really pushed us to look at other types of sites. And what it does is it gets us out in the community more, talking about this program and what the opportunities are through these work training things. I think at one point, a few weeks ago, there had been 50 or 60 employers approached within a 2-week time frame, you know, talking about the program, talking about work training, what it can do. Don't get me wrong, this isn't an easy sell to walk into an employer and say, we have somebody who may have barriers, may have never worked before, there could be issues there, but would you take them on? You know, we'll payroll them, but would you take them on? What we're asking your help to do is treat them like a regular employee. Help us coach them and understand what it is to be a good employee. And so that's not always an easy sell. Plus, people are skeptical. You know, they're like, you're going to payroll them? You know, that sounds a little bit too good to be true. But it is true, and it's part of the program. So the sites that are listed in here, some of them are really different than what we're
This is their employment sites.
Yep,
This
yep.
is where they're working, not work training.
Right. But it's we keep chasing that, and it's just different stuff than what we're used to, and it's helped us broaden that picture.
Mr. Chair?
Commissioner Jelinski.
Brian, if I can touch on that just for a second. Those funds that you're talking about, the payrolling, if you will, that's coming from the state, that's coming from the feds? Don't know, but it's coming from somewhere.
Yeah, it's part, yeah.
And then, how long do you continue the payroll before Starry Eyed Brewery, I'm just picking on somebody here, takes over?
If we're doing a work training,
Okay?
Judy or Nick will typically start at about 12 or 13 weeks
Okay?
of payroll. That's kind of where our first goal is, our first time frame
Yep.
is. If we have someone that's maybe going to school and can still do some work training, we may stretch that, but we'll reduce the hours. The max hours we can pay is 29 hours a week.
Okay?
But if somebody's going to school and they can manage to also work a little bit, they might put them on 5 hours a week or 10 hours a week, but then it could stretch it, maybe it stretches it for 3
Okay.
weeks.
Very good.
So,
Thank you. Thank you.
sorry to interrupt.
No,
but
that's okay. Yeah, so Brian kind of jumped to the next section. So we were talking about, it's okay, employment already. So we do have 15 that are currently employed, but we're,
glad I came.
that's okay. I think he's worried I'm gonna forget to tell you about the good things we've been doing. We've been doing good things. Okay, so work training. So yes, that was our huge push in Morrison County. When I took over as team leader, I know Brian really wanted it. He's been talking to you guys a lot about it. So we really went out into the community and did our best to find new work sites. Usually we have a lot of work sites that we kind of always fall back on. So because of COVID, a lot of these work sites weren't letting us in like normal, like the schools and the library and places like that. So we had to get kind of creative. It was kind of neat because going out, I personally went out to different work sites and I was really surprised of all the business owners and higher ups in each profession that have been on our program before, on the SEP program, on work training. Maybe they've used MFIT before, and a lot of them kind of shared those experiences with me, which was pretty neat. But yes, we were able to develop new work sites. Piers Library was a recurring one, but we did put an MFIP on there. A New to You thrift store, Starry Eyed Brewery, we currently have someone working. Monaghan Marine, we actually have someone from the program on the Morrison County DMV working here right now. We just set up a new work site in St. Joe, actually, called Unwind. A Morrison County resident is already doing some work there, so we were able to set them up. The Humane Society, places like that. So like Brian had explained, it's $10 an hour, so it's nothing great, but it gets them a taste of that check and that employment and that responsibility piece. Up to 29 hours a week, and it's been very productive. So our big goal was to hit that 50%. We're really working hard on spending 50% of our budget potentially on work training. As of today, we're actually at 48.5% spent on training services, which is wonderful. So it means a lot of college, a lot of work training, and those kind of things. Looking into college, we've helped fund a four-year hydrology degree, marine and small engine diploma, that was a 2-year, CNA certifications, CDL. So we've kind of had a wide spread of different things that people are looking into. Kind of give you just a little information on the wage information of our clients. We ran a few reports and looked into our caseload for this last year. We're actually currently at a median wage of $20 an hour, which is pretty awesome. Everywhere from $10 would be the lowest to $30 what our clients were making before they were taken off the program. Wage at placement, we're falling at $12.31, which is well above the requirement, which is actually $10.50. So we're doing great in that department. We kind of talked a little bit about impacts of COVID, but we've had some struggles with it. We've also had some really positive experiences with it. A lot more virtual meetings that we're kind of trying to help people with. We're trying to get a little bit more creative with what can we do to provide these people services during this time. So we're helping provide information on Ruby's Pantry, produce food drops that the county's doing, even information regarding like distance learning and trying to set up some of those kind of classes for parents. So we're trying to get creative with how we want to spend these funds and what our clients need from us. Going into like highlights and successes. So we've also been really pushing the National Career Readiness Certificate, NCRC, this year, doing a lot of testing. We've had 14 clients actually take that certificate. It's a nationally recognized assessment that's offered by ACT, and it's kind of measures the essential work skills needed to be successful in a career. So of those 14, we've had 1 client get a platinum, 3 gold, 7 silver, and 3 bronze, which is wonderful. Very good motivator for people going out and putting that on their resume, kind of a confidence booster that we've been seeing. So I kind of had touched on this already, but the 44% on the work experience and training is now at 48.5, so we're almost there. And just a couple successes I wanted to share with you guys quick. These are 3 of our clients. The first one is an MFIT participant. We helped assist with his marine and small engine mechanic diploma at CLC. He then went on work training like we had discussed at Monaghan Marine, and they have decided to employ him. He's graduated now, working full-time as a mechanic there. So that was one of our successes. Another one, we have a 4-year degree student that graduated with hydrology. She's now graduated and working full-time at a water research company, doing very well. And the last one I wanted to share, he actually has a picture. He gave us a release. He wanted to actually come in here today and talk to you, but he said that wasn't necessary. He didn't need to take off work. But he came in, great example, was not on MFIP yet, low income, struggling, wanted to do more for his family. One of our counselors, Nick, had referred him to the MFIP program. He signed up for it. We assisted with that, earning his CDL. And he since has been employed full-time as a truck driver, earning over $21 an hour. Very, very thankful and grateful of the program, and he wants to share it with the world, which has been really great. His wife called last week and wanted to know if she could bring in homemade food for everybody. And I said, no, I really wanted to say yes, but not with COVID, and we can't do that. But yeah, so he actually wrote a personal thank you note that I shared with you guys. And he even had shared that his son and his daughter both have seen him take that extra step, and now they have decided to go back to school and realize that there's maybe a little bit more to life than necessarily the fast food industry, which was kind of a neat deal. So I kind of went through a lot of information, but did you guys have questions on anything that we're doing or any of the graphs?
Commissioner Blaine.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Samantha, past couple months, a number of us have visited with businesses throughout the county. These are private-owned businesses. And the one, when I tell business owners that I'd like to help them, the response to them is been the same, almost like a beating drum, in the sense that they're looking for human resources. The biggest stumbling block right now for these businesses is not COVID. It is we can't find people, and we need people to help us make things, fix things, do things, work on things. I want to help you to help our businesses in the county. When I talk to these business owners, Samantha, what phone number should I give them to talk to you?
Yeah, you could give them my direct number or even our front desk number. So my number is 320-232-2006. And we have heard a lot of that from our local businesses. We've been doing our best to help advertise with our, we'll send a message out to our caseload, we'll get in contact with job seekers. We post it on our TV that we have in our career lab. We have it on our Facebook page. And then we're trying to utilize some of those businesses for work sites and getting them, those clients connected with that. So they can get a little bit of that, in a sense, free labor. And then it's also a benefit for that client to get them that work experience.
Yeah, and a great number of these business owners are very willing to make the investment in training individuals out there who might want to learn a skill or be a part of that business or industry out there. So, you guys are doing tremendous work. We just need a conduit to get to these businesses, because there is a tremendous need out there, and I think there's tremendous opportunities for anyone out there who wants to enter into the workforce or wants to maybe entertain a change in what they do for work too. So I'm grateful that you're here this morning.
There's one other thing to share too. This isn't common in our agency, but it's becoming more common in Morrison County, is the on-the-job training program. So we've got work training, and then we've got, of course, employment, just straight up employment. But the on-the-job training is just what it sounds like. So if we find a client who's, we've done an interest survey, we've assessed them to see what they might be good at or interested in, we try to match them with an employer, or if they've already contacted an employer, and there's some reservation or things like that, in many situations, we will pay up to 50% of those wages for up to 6 months of employment with that employer. It's an incentive for the employer. It's one of the few incentives we have for just straight up employers. Doesn't benefit the client other than that they're going to work, but for the employer, when we come and say, yeah, we understand they don't have a lot of work history. We understand they don't have a lot of skills in, the carpentry industry, but, it's an interest. They like, and we kind of show them that stuff. If they can make it through that interview and the employer is willing to say, all right, I'll give them a shot, we'll write an OJT contract. And we do a midterm check-in. We're always staying with the client and the employer throughout. And sometimes these OJTs can run 12 weeks, sometimes they run 28 weeks. Some OJTs are $3,000, some OJTs are $33,000. That's a reimbursement program to the employer. It's a straight up employer benefit. It's one of the few that the employment training services offer, but it's straight up employer benefit. And we love doing OJTs, and quite honestly, we do tend to focus maybe more so on the smaller businesses who need that help. They don't have a payroll that, just is massive. So those OJTs a lot of times make the difference on that person getting hired, because we're helping out with some of that upfront training cost as just something else to share with you, Greg, about the employer part of it.
I appreciate that. Thank you, sir.
And one last thing is, I know that finding job seekers right now is more difficult than usual. We are trying to set up some virtual career fairs that we're trying to advertise for. We had our first one last month. We have one set up for October 28th, and it's for manufacturing focused. So we're looking currently for some local employers that do have a manufacturing business. And with that, we advertise to the surrounding area. Anyone on Minnesota Works receives a advertisement piece for that. And we've been doing that through that Microsoft Teams platform, which has been pretty successful so far. So we do have those as well if people are struggling to find employers, just to kind of offer another free advertisement piece for that.
If I could just make one final comment, Mr. Chair?
Yes, Brad.
And that is that anybody that pre-COVID and post-COVID that comes in and applies for financial assistance is immediately referred to rural Minnesota SEP. And as you can see from the statistics, there's very few people on a financial assistance program relative to our population, and they're, most if not all, are working with rural Minnesota SEP. So again, if you're on a financial assistance program, we're required to work with them on going to work, and they do a great job of trying to engage them. So I think that's always kind of a misconception about just being able to sit at home and receive benefits, and that's not usually the case.
Anything else, commissioners? All right, well, thank you, Samantha, Brian.
Yeah,
Karen.
thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, thank you.
Yeah. Next on the agenda, public health.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So this morning I have two guests, and Cindy's got her flashlight on. She's gonna shine a spotlight on you guys.
How do we shut it off? There's gotta be a way of shutting it off.
So Melissa was planning to be here. Cindy is an unexpected and pleasant surprise to be here as well. She was going to have something else happening today. But I wanted to share some information on car seat programs, and I know it's benefited maybe some of you who are grandparents. And Melissa runs the car seat program, and so I thought she'd come and provide some information, so, especially with our new health plan, so.
Yeah, definitely. So I'm Melissa Harris. I'm a registered nurse and a child passenger safety technician here at Public Health. I've been doing this for about 3 years now, so like Brad said, we've had a little bit of change with our health plan, so we're trying to get used to those this year. But we'll just go ahead and get started with some facts here. According to the U.S. Department of Transportation, 3 out of 4 car seats are installed incorrectly, so that 75% of our car seats out there are installed incorrectly. A lot of that could potentially be because there's so many manufacturers now, so many more different components and new parts of car seats that come out on a routine basis, so trying to stay up to date with that technology. Traffic crashes are the leading cause of death in children. Most of these deaths are preventable deaths. Car seats do reduce the risk of injury by 71 to 82% and reduce the risk of death by 28% when compared to the use of car seat or seatbelts alone. So we have 2 main goals of our car seat program. The first one is education. So we provide education to parents, grandparents, foster parents, daycare providers. We also do some community education with local ECFE groups. I've gone out to the Pierce School District, also worked with Palmer Bus Company on some resources for them. We have people that call in all the time. And then we are hoping eventually to be able to teach the CARS class for parents and foster parents, and that's a 3-hour class that is required by the state for them to take. Right now, they're not opening that training up to anybody else but the specific providers that are already doing that training. And the second goal is to provide good quality seats to our people that are in need through our health plans. So next slide. So to become a child passenger safety technician, I went out to Alexandria and did a 3-day intensive training out there. Was presented a certificate that needs to be renewed every 2 years. So there's a lot of education that you have to get throughout that 2-year period of time, as well as doing some car seat installations and getting those checked off, so. Next slide. So on average, in Morrison County, we were giving out about 70 car seats per year through our health plans and our grants. In 2018, we had a lot of referrals. We had 91 seats that we distributed total. So that was our highest year. Last year in 2019, we had 75 seats through South Country Health Alliance and 1 seat through U-Care. So this year in 2020, our numbers are down a little bit. I'm thinking a lot of it has to do with COVID. I have referrals, but people aren't wanting to come in. Just recently, in the last couple of months, people are starting to pick up a little bit, but so far we've had 17 seats through U-Care and 3 through Blue Plus and 1 grant seat. I know since I submitted this presentation, I've handed out 7 additional seats. So definitely numbers are picking up, and we're hoping maybe we can do a little bit more advocating for our program as well. So we have 3 main funding sources for our car seats. The first one is through Blue Plus, and the majority of our people here in Morrison County under age 65 are not with the Blue Plus, so we have few of those seats. But they provide the car seat to us, and then they reimburse us $81.44 per car seat appointment. And each appointment can range from 30 minutes all the way up to an hour long. U-Care, like I said, they're our biggest population of clients. They provide the seat for us, and they reimburse us a little bit better at $81.60 per car seat appointment. And then our final source is through grants, and those seats are obtained through the Department of Public Safety. We obtained 4 of those in 2019. So why do car seats work? First and foremost, they work because they keep the child in the car. They also protect the important parts of the body, the head, neck, and spine, and they spread the crash force over the largest portion of the body, their shoulders and their hips. So next slide. So why do we choose the right car seat? We need to make sure that we're not choosing the same car seat for every 3-year-old. Obviously, 3-year-olds are different in the height, the weight, the size, their maturity level. So all car seats need to be kind of tailored to each specific child. And not all car seats actually fit in every single car because of the way the angle of the seat, the headrest, different things like that to take into consideration. So here in Minnesota, we have a child passenger restraint law, and that it states that all children under the age of 8 and 4'9" must be in a federally approved car seat or booster seat. Car seats must be installed correctly according to the manufacturer's instructions, and all children under the age of 1 and 20 pounds, they need to be rear-facing. We obviously encourage people to keep their children rear-facing longer, at least until 2 or when they outgrow the weight of their current rear-facing seat. So this law applies to all motor vehicles that are originally equipped with factory-installed seat belts. So next we have a little video here, kind of shows why we do what we do. So you'll see one child that's in a car seat and one child that's not in the car seat. The child that's not in the car seat flies through the car. This child hits their head, neck, spine, probably has a brain injury, a spinal cord injury, maybe paralyzed, has possibly even died from this crash, where the child that's in the car seat potentially has some bruising from the car seat harness, and we all know bruises we can heal from, broken bones we can heal from, but we can't heal from that brain injury or that spinal cord injury as well. So, any questions?
Commissioner Blaine.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. See, Brad, do we ever get any of these car seats back? We distribute these car seats to young mothers and that, and obviously, you know, the children grow out of them at a point in time. Do we ever have any of these mothers who would come back to the county and say, you know, I'm not having any more children, I have no more need for this car seat? And if they did, could we accept them and redistribute them?
So I don't believe we have, but more importantly, car seats now expire. So they are not good forever anymore. I'm not sure the length of time, but,
So car seats, typically, they're making the expiration dates longer, between 8 and 10 years. But we really have to be careful redistributing car seats. There can be a liability associated with that. Just because if that car seat's been in a car crash, it cannot be used again. You know, or if they don't have all the buckles or different parts to that car seat, it shouldn't be used again. If they don't have the owner's manual, we can obviously obtain the owner's manual, if need be, but, there's a lot of things that need to be taken into consideration. Also, if they launder the car seat cover and it shouldn't be laundered, now it no longer has a fire retardant on it, so it's kind of a liability, I think, for our agency to take in used car seats. Unfortunately, we don't have a recycling program in our area either, so that's kind of hard. So some people do have a hard time throwing away those old seats, but if they need to, we encourage them to disassemble the car seat as much as possible, recycle if they can. I think Stearns County residents can go to their recycling place, but we can't.
well, and every so often Target or Walmart will do a turn-in program, so they will actually give you a gift card or money off a new car seat. So we've actually done that with our child welfare staff, because we have car seats that we transport our foster kids in, and so we'll work with Target or Walmart when they do that and go exchange our car seats so we get an up-to-date one. But whether or not they hand them off to other people they might know to use, they can certainly do that, but like, as Melissa said, it's a liability for us to take a used car seat and then, and repurpose it.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions, commissioners? All right, thank you, Melissa.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Cindy.
very,
Thank you,
very
Brad.
That's all I have this morning.
All
Have a
right.
good day.
Thank you. Extensions report, they all have it for us. Becky's not gonna be able to make it today.
So it's just in the packet for your review.
Yeah, she'll be here at our next planning session. Next on the agenda, auditor's report, cash report.
Steve should be coming in here. Hold on one second. Let me just pop my head in. It's a little faster than texting him.
All right.
Morning, Steve.
Morning, Steve.
Go back on the subject, those car seats, they're expensive in that Commissioner Blaine. Expiration dates, I mean, they're $200-300.
She is.
Morning, Chelsea.
$200-300.
Chelsea.
Good morning.
Morning.
How are you all?
Wonderful, thank you.
Morning, Chelsea.
Morning. Before you, in front of you, you have the August cash report. This is a report that you see monthly, that we have to provide by statute. So just a visual of where we're at. I'd just like to give an update too, when we look at this report about interest rates. So we've seen rates go down, and they're coming back up a little bit, and we'll go more in depth next month on that when I bring over the cash reports and interest reports.
Any questions? No. All right, thank you.
And then I just have requests for board warrants to be approved.
Could I get a motion in a second?
So move, Mr. Chair.
Motion by Commissioner Blaine,
Second.
second by Commissioner Winter to pay the bills. Discussion? Let's be a roll call. Commissioner Blaine?
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson?
Aye.
Myself, aye. Commissioner Winter?
Aye.
Commissioner Jelinski?
Aye.
Motion carried.
And then if I could, Mr. Chair, I just have a couple updates with the offices. So for the Auditor Treasurer's Office, just a reminder that we're about 3 weeks away from our second half property tax due date. Just looking at the records yesterday morning, we're up about $1 million in collection from where we were last year at this point. So just to give you an idea of where we're at. And then early voting for elections started last Friday. So we have been busy with early voting at the counter. Just to give you an idea, 4 years ago, we pulled the records, and the first day we had one early voter for on the first day for the presidential election. And the last couple days, we've had roughly 30 to 35 voters in person, so voting absentee. And then absentee requests, last presidential election year, we had our first mail out was about 185 absentee ballots. And this year, our first roundabout for mailing is 1,900. So those are not including the mail ballots. Mail ballots, again, are roughly 6,000 mail ballots that will be going out. So currently at this point, we're roughly 39% being processed by mail.
If
So-
I may, Mr. Chair, Chelsea, again, we can't count them votes until the November 3rd. You can't pre-count them to get ahead on everything? when
Our
they come?
office can start processing ballots 2 weeks before the election day.
Okay.
And then again, with this election, we have, the vote totals won't be final election night. We'll have results in election night. But due to COVID-19, we are to process ballots that come in by mail that are postmarked on or before election day, 7 days after the November 3rd election. So we will have final results by November 10th, and then they're unofficial until we have our canvassing board review the results and approve them.
Mr. Chair, again, just a comment. If a ballot comes in on the 4th or 5th and there's no postmark on it, what happens? It gets thrown out?
We are told by the state that if the ballot comes in with no postmark, that we are to assume that it was postmarked on or before election day.
So then it would be counted.
Correct, as long as it's within that time frame. And then just an update to gentlemen, I will be meeting tomorrow with the Secretary of State, Steve Simon. So if you have any questions or concerns around elections, I will be meeting with him tomorrow to discuss where we are at for Morrison County.
Any other questions?
Mr. Chair, back
Yes.
to Randy's question a little bit. You said any ballot that comes in that, even if it's not postmarked in those 7 days?
If it's, so our mail that goes out is already pre-postmarked, but if it were to come in without the US postal and the date, we are to assume that it's on or before election day. That's what's been communicated.
But it has to come through the post office
Correct,
on those days.
correct, through the mail. So if someone were to hand it over the counter on November 6th, no, too late.
Because they are postmarked, right? When you
Right.
Yeah, okay.
Yep. And then just an update with motor vehicle, if I could.
Yes.
Currently, my staff are in the midst of some heavy training for the Minnesota Drive system. They were expected to roll out into our new system middle of November. So we have, right now, we're in the Minlar system. And so we are converting the middle of November. The state has told us that we will have to be shut down for a few days in the middle of November for this implement. So more to come with that. I'm looking for clarification on how and when we can be open and how that's gonna look for our office. And then I have been on the call with the State Department of Public Safety, and they have notified us that exam stations has been a topic for many. And so they are gonna review, looking at opening additional exam stations November 1st, looking at the possibilities. Because I know that's been a hot topic. So that's my update.
Well, thank you, Chelsea.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Next on the agenda, Public Works Report. Morning, Steve.
Morning, Steve.
Morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board.
Morning, Steve.
Everyone. The number of items for your consideration today. I think all of these have been presented and discussed with the board through our planning process, so nothing should be new. But if there's any issues. I'll try to be able to answer those questions. So the first item, there's two things that we are considering here in supporting the city of Royalton in a grant application that they're making for an improvement to access on Highway 10 on the west side and south of R26. There was a map included in with the resolution that shows the realignment of the skewed crossing that is off to the right on the top half of the page. There's a skewed crossing of, that comes from the south and ties into Highway 10 that's been a very bad location, I guess we could call it, with the volumes of traffic on Highway 10 and the way that comes in at a skew. The city of Royalton and MnDOT have gone through quite a bit of planning, and there's going to be upgrades to US Highway 10 through Royalton that are coming in the future. MnDOT has those in their plans. But this is a improvement that could take place relatively quickly. And Royalton is working with MnDOT to try to obtain funding for the project, which is that realignment to the west of Highway 10, which gets a new crossing of the BNSF and provides much better site conditions as they access onto Highway 10. In order to they want to make application for a TED grant, which is a Transportation Economic Development Grant. And the way we've handled these in the past is we have to be a sponsor because they are under 5,000 population. So we act as the fiscal agent and we take on some responsibilities technically in keeping the project on track and assuring that the local match is made for the project if it's granted and it moves forward. We cover that by entering into an agreement with the city that requires them to cover our expenses that we may have, but typically they'll bring on their own engineer. They'll have their own local participating funds, and that is all passed through us as once the project gets to construction and it's awarded and it's built. So what we're asking for today in the resolution would be that we will act as a sponsor so they can make application for this grant. We also have included a whereas in the resolution that if the city of Royalton doesn't enter into the sponsorship agreement, which covers us as far as our expenses, the resolution of support becomes null and void. And so our recommendation is that the board would authorize this resolution so the city of Royalton can make this application for this grant.
Commissioners, could I get a motion and a second for further discussion?
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Jelinski,
I'll second.
second by Commissioner Wilson. Discussion?
Mr. Chair, we talked about this at length, and I would just like to emphasize the safety portion of this. At the end result, it will certainly be a much safer crossing.
Any other discussion? And this is
There-
one, oh, I'm sorry, and this is one benefit that the county does for smaller cities. We do it for peers, and I think it'd be the right thing to help out with Royalton too on this. You had something
Yeah,
to say?
we have done this previously in Safe Routes to School. It's a similar situation. We've done it with the city of Royalton, with the city of Pierce. And to you know, let the board know that there is more and more of this coming for the small cities. It's not like they're just distributing funds to the small cities. They make these competitive programs, and this is the way and the direction that this is going in order for small cities to get funding for their systems. There was a question about any contribution from Burlington, Northern Santa Fe, and I had spoke with the city engineer about that, and currently there isn't any kind of an arrangement with BNSF, and typically they would not contribute when there's a relocation of access like this. They'll have to go through a permitting and construction process with BNSF because they will build the new crossing across the tracks, but normally that's all paid for and a part of the grant. The right-of-way acquisition, the city has got a couple of options on how they'll acquire the right-of-way.
that they've taken into consideration. They know that that's going to be an expense of theirs, and so they have that covered. And the local match will be, they have some funds set aside for these type of improvements. Anything in excess of that, maybe a small loan is what they would expect. Their share would be, and MnDOT is also providing some funds to cover the city's cost in order to get the project built.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, then RBA number 2 is the City of Royalton, the agreement for us to cover our costs. Normally, we would have had this already executed by the city, but the way their schedule was set up for their meetings and when they requested that we support the application, there wasn't time to do that. And so that's why in the resolution of support, if the agreement isn't entered into, then the letter or the resolution of support is null and void. Our request is that the board would enter into the sponsorship agreement that we've presented here. It's similar and it's gone through legal review. That will be presented at the next city council meeting for their signatures.
What is the wish of the board?
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Wincher,
Second.
second by Commissioner Wilson. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, RBA number 3 relates to a project that is in our 2022 road improvement program. We made application and were successful in obtaining a grant for $1.5 million for the reconstruction of 4th Street, County Road 257, essentially from Trunk Highway 27 to the overpass of Highway 10, just south of St. Otto's nursing home. And in this situation, when we made application, one of the reasons we did was the city of Little Falls is in need of upgrading their sewer and water system in 4th Street. Sewer and water is a cost that is borne by the city. The agreement that we have presented here went to the city council last night and was approved. It essentially lays out the terms and conditions of how we'll proceed with the project. The city will lead the preliminary engineering and the design of the plans that will have to go through MnDOT, since this is a federal grant, for approval. Once we have a complete set of plans and approval through the MnDOT process, we would go to advertising, and the construction of the project itself would take place where the city was responsible for all the underground work, utilities that are under their jurisdiction, and the county will be responsible for construction, staking, inspection for the street work itself and all the ADA improvements and those type of things. We have, this is similar to our agreement that we have with Piers on our 3943 project coming up in 2021. And the Exhibit A breaks down how the expenses are distributed. We take off of the street items for the project, the grant that we apply, and then those portions that are left are distributed to the responsible jurisdiction. So our request is that the board would enter into this agreement so we can keep this project on track and move it forward to construction in 2022.
What's the wish of the board?
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Motion by Commissioner Blaine,
Second.
second by Commissioner Jelinski. Discussion?
Yes, Mr. Chair, if I may. Steve, again, I know the answer, and the board knows the answer, but if you could just for the record say why we're getting involved in 4th Street Southeast and here in Little Falls.
Yes, 4th Street Southeast in Little Falls is a county road on our system within the city limits of Little Falls. We have several roads within the city of Little Falls that are under our jurisdiction, just like we have roads in all the small cities across the county. 4th Street we did some exchanges a number of years ago with Riverwood and a number of other streets to provide a better coordinated system throughout, and
I think, maximize state funding for the different roads that are within the city. And so it's just like any other road project in the small cities, we have responsibility for maintaining and keeping them up and in good condition. With the urban environment that we have on 4th Street, much of it is non-compliant with ADA. So much of this work will be focused on improving access to the sidewalks and all of how the sidewalks lay in there for disabled folks to be able to use that system. But then also, we need to incorporate the city's need for their sewer and water system. And as the city is developed and that becoming a main trunk for sewer and water, improvements need to be taken and constructed at the same time that the street is redone. So I guess it's not the city of Little Falls is a city greater than 5,000 in population, so that gives them some added incentives in that they can handle if they receive federal funds themselves, they don't have to go through us and have a sponsorship. Federal funds can be directed through the city without going through the county, where the small cities that can't happen.
Commissioner Blaine.
Steve, for clarification into your last comment there on that, the funding that the county received to do this work on 4th Street is for our construction. It is that funding, that federal funding, is not to be accessed by the city of Little Falls to do their sewer and water. Is that correct?
That's correct. The sewer and water is a non-participating items in the grant that we have. It's not a part of the street reconstruction.
Okay, thank you.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, the next request for board action is to enter into an agreement with the City of Pierce and Damon Properties for the relocation of a loading dock that currently requires that our County State Highway 43 gets partially blocked during deliveries there. Now that we will be reconstructing County State Highway 43 and 39 with the City of Pierce, Rich Prairie Sewer and Water District, there will be a trail that will be incorporated in the plans for this improvement. And because of this trail, and it is partly funded through Safe Routes to School, we don't want to be forcing any pedestrians out into the street during deliveries. We have negotiated terms and conditions to relocate this access so that does not happen, and that it will be relocated to the west side and will not be utilized in the future. And so this agreement is basically a right-of-way acquisition agreement in which we eliminate this from happening on 43. It's probably the last one that we have across the county. We used to have a number of these, but this one being the last one that I know of where a county stated highway is blocked partially during deliveries and access for a business. We've discussed this a number of times in planning, and we've worked it through and have this agreement. The City of Pierce has approved the agreement. Damon Properties have. It's gone through legal review, and we're requesting that the board would authorize it.
What's the wish of the board?
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Commissioner Wilson,
Second.
second by Commissioner Blaine. Discussion? This will be a roll call. Commissioner Wilson?
Aye.
Myself, aye. Commissioner Wincher?
Aye.
Commissioner Jelinski?
Aye.
Commissioner Blaine?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, request for board action number 5 is a request to relinquish a portion of right-of-way on our County Road 281. We discussed this at planning also, in which we have extended right-of-way that was acquired for a or for a short stretch of property where the dirt was removed for the construction of County Road 281. That extended right-of-way then pushes setbacks, that type of thing, out quite a bit further because it's measured from the right-of-way line where property that could be utilized for the construction of a building, that type of thing, becomes non-usable. In this situation, our recommendation is that we would relinquish a portion of that right-of-way going from 90 feet from center line to 60 feet from center line, which is very normal for almost most of our system across the county. So we'd recommend that the board would authorize this resolution.
What is the wish of the board?
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Motion by Commissioner Jelinski, second by Commissioner Wincher. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, the next item is just an acknowledgement essentially by the county board. As you're well aware, we've been working hard, I guess, in trying to put together our Shut Off the Faucet project in support of the task force up at Lake Shamana. The concept of the plan is that we will be creating 2 detention ponds essentially, and we'll be pumping from the easterly pond to the westerly pond, and then from the westerly pond to the discharge, to our discharge point. There's a number of items that we are still contending with in order to be able to do that. And you're well aware that we're working with potentially petitioning Todd County for discharge to County Ditch 41, those type of things that are going on. But in the interim, we are putting together all the other things that will have to be in place in order for this project to proceed and start up. We normally would not have to bring an easement to the county board, but in this situation, the property owner wanted the board to acknowledge that they were in agreement with what the terms and conditions were, which are the additional right-of-way will cost $100. Trees greater than 4-inch diameter that we'll be taking out when we clear that right-of-way would be stockpiled and left for the property owner. He is fencing along the current right-of-way, which will have to be relocated and moved back. And once the project terminates, our pumping project terminates, it would be relocated back to where it was. We won't disturb the culvert at 172, which is our existing culvert. The culvert will remain. We're not intending to plug it, or I'm not intending to block it. Under heavy rain events, high flow conditions, it becomes our safety valve because we wouldn't be able to handle that type of quantity of water anyway. There's a construction access, or there's an access that'll be put in place on the west side of the detention basin that'll be put in there to provide access to the pump and the electrical panel that at that point. So that he wants to be able to utilize that once the system is done into the future. So that doesn't really affect anything. And then he asked that we present this so that the board could at least acknowledge that they've seen this, and if you're in agreement with it, he has agreed that he would sign off on this temporary easement.
What is the wish of the board?
It's till 2025 is the time
December
period.
31st, yeah. What is the wish of the board?
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Motion by Commissioner Blaine,
Second?
second by Commissioner Wilson. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
That's all I have, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Steve.
Thanks, Steve.
Steve?
Next on the agenda, Administrator's Report. Deb? Ms. Gruber?
I have a few action items. The first is to appoint George Daler, Chuck Storkamp, Herb Brashofsky to the Rich Prairie Sewer and Water District for a new term, and that is for January 1st of 2021 through December 31st of 2022.
So I'll make a motion.
Motion by Commissioner Wilson,
Second.
second by Commissioner Wincher. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
All right, and then I have before you a resolution for transfer to the RDFA. This will be, we've discussed this before, but this is resulting from our application for the Small Business Cares Funding Program. As discussed last week, the program had a great response, and so the initial funding that you transferred to the RDFA for distribution wasn't enough for the response that we had for small businesses. And so, as discussed, the direction was to add additional dollars to that program to be able to fund those that did submit an application and are qualifying for RDFA or community development to work to distribute. And so the total amount that we need to identify for transfer now is $52,216. Carol Anderson is working on making sure to get that substantiation complete, but it looked as if that was the case, and so she was working to get that done, and that will be certainly required before anything's distributed for those extra dollars. But that is what we're looking for today.
What is the wish of the board?
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Commissioner Wilson,
Second.
second by Commissioner Blaine. Discussion?
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Commissioner Jelinski.
if I may, this certainly, CARES money is certainly all tax money. We're very clear on that, I think. However, this addition, if you will, to add additional dollars, as Ms. Gruber said, this is through the pot of money that came from the federal government down to the states, down to the counties to be distributed. That's correct, right?
Yes.
Very good. That's all I need.
Any further discussion? Commissioner Blaine?
Quick question in reference, we spoke of this at the RDFA meeting, and you were there, Deb, about board members who wish to distribute those checks personally. We still have the opportunity to do that. Is that correct?
Yes, and you know what, I forgot to mention that on Tuesday, but if you have the desire to deliver those award recipients to the businesses, you certainly can do that. Let me know, and I will work with Carol to get that done. There is a grant agreement that needs to be signed, so I have to have you do that in addition to delivering that. But if you're interested in and willing to do that, let me know. I think you maybe did speak with Carol directly, Mike, and you are working on that, but it's up to you. Otherwise, they'll be mailed, or they'll work with the businesses to come and to sign that agreement to get issue for those checks, but otherwise, you're absolutely more than welcome to do that if you'd like.
She said they would be ready tomorrow after we approve this today.
So if any of you are interested in getting those, it's gonna take the work on your part to deliver those, but you're more than welcome to, and it certainly would be a nice gesture in terms of being able to connect again with those businesses, and I appreciate the fact that they've participated. It was a good response, and that was nice. That's what it was for.
Any further discussion? Tabitha, would you like, is this a roll call? This will be a roll call. I'll start with myself. Aye. Commissioner Wincher?
Aye.
Commissioner Jelinski?
Aye.
Commissioner Blaine?
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson? Motion carried.
Perfect. And on this topic, the nonprofit program is currently open. Those are due October 9th. And so any questions or anything anybody has, Morrison County United Way is administering that for us, and we're working back and forth in anything that does come up. So I appreciate the participation in that also.
Thank you.
Next, I'm going to have Steve, our finance director, come up and we'll talk 2021 budget and levy. As you are well aware, we've been working on developing the 2021 budget throughout the summer. You have met with all the departments. We work as a committee to bring forward ultimately what it is we're hoping and wanting and needing to see for 2021.
Good morning.
Good morning, Steve.
Morning, Steve.
Mr. Chair, I guess before you we'll need two resolutions. One's approve the levy, one to approve the budget. We can start with the levy. We're currently at the 2.42%. We talked about this extensively, that it does not take into consideration at this time any of the new market value construction that's going on, which is roughly a little less than 1% of that. So when things all get done, that gets factored into all this as well. So I think it comes down to about 1.64%, somewhere in there. So, and as a matter of reference, I think we talked about this a little bit, but over the last 10 years, you know, the county's levy before this market value has been between 0 and 2 point, you know, we've been as high as 3, but we've averaged less than 2%. Probably closer to 1.7% over that 10-year period in a levy impact to the taxpayers. So I think we've been pretty good at keeping that levy, and we tried to always stay within that inflationary level, you know, which can run anywhere from 2 to 4% over that 10-year period. So I think we've done a good job of, you know, keeping a levy there that's fairly reasonable. So we need a motion to approve the levy at $19,555,336.
Gentlemen, could I get a motion and a second for further discussion, for the approving of the levy of a 2.42%? Is that what you said, Steve?
Yes, 2.42%.
So moved.
Motion made by Commissioner Jelinski,
Second.
second by Commissioner Blaine. Discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, roll call? This will be a roll call. Commissioner Wincher?
Aye.
Commissioner Jelinski?
Aye.
Commissioner Blaine?
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson?
Aye.
Myself, aye. Motion carried.
All right, the next item would be to approve a budget, and the budget is currently at $54,407,763, which is an 8.10% increase. Again, there's a lot of variables that go in and out of a budget versus the levy. As you can see, if you look at the printout there, that the road and bridge is a pretty significant increase. He's got a pretty busy year going in 2021. That's mainly the main reason why that levy increases, or the budget increases, is where it's at, so.
Gentlemen, could I get a motion and a second to approve the budget?
So move, Mr. Chair.
Second?
Motion by Commissioner Blaine, second by Commissioner Wilson. Discussions?
Mr. Chair, if I may,
Yes, please.
I want to thank Mr. Messerschmidt for all of his help to this board in putting together this budget in a manner that's respectable and understandable and transparent to the board here, and certainly his help in helping us achieve a levy that's also respectable to the and should be deemed respectable by the taxpayers of Morrison County. So I appreciate your help, Steve.
Well, you gotta thank your department heads and financial there as well. They put a lot of time and effort into making sure that this is where it's at. They spend a lot of time on it as well, and so I just present the numbers as best I can and try to make them understandable, so easy to understand.
All that crop comes in from the department heads, but you become the combine, and it makes the work for the board more concise, having your expertise on this. So don't shortchange yourself.
Thank you.
And we'd also like to thank the department heads.
Yes.
Any other discussions? Did you have something, Steve?
Nope, I'm good.
This will be a roll call. Where am I at now? Commissioner Jelinski?
Aye.
Commissioner Blaine?
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson?
Aye.
Myself, aye. Commissioner Wincher?
Aye.
Motion carried.
The next item I have is to approve the HRA preliminary levy, which is $40,000, which would be the same as 2020 levy.
Could I get a motion and a second?
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Wincher,
Second.
second by Commissioner Jelinski to approve the HRA preliminary levy. Discussion? Roll call. Commissioner Blaine?
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson?
Aye.
Myself, aye. Commissioner Wincher?
Aye.
Commissioner Jelinski?
Aye.
Motion carried.
And Mr. Chair, the final item I have is that we need to set a date for the truth and taxation hearing. It can be held anywhere between November 25th and December 28th. It must take place at 6 p.m. or later. So if there's a day in particular that works best for everyone, it doesn't have to be a Tuesday. It can be any night of the week. So.
We could start with suggesting a Tuesday. Do you want to do that? And there's actually kind of in concert with what I was going to mention too regarding the December Tuesday meeting.
heck
The,
is that?
we don't have AMC this year, it's canceled due to COVID, so if you wanna have that meeting on Tuesday, December 8th instead of the 10th, we could do that TNT that evening, Tuesday evening?
All right,
Like,
how about the 8th?
The 8th doesn't work, okay, perfect.
How about December 1st, 6 PM?
Because we have a Board of Adjustment at 7, right?
Oh,
How
forget
about the
it.
15th? We have a planning session that day. That's a Tuesday. Just throwing it out there.
I'm not available on that evening. Wouldn't 6 o'clock work though for, on
It
the
should.
1st with,
How long you have to be open?
There isn't a requirement to be here for a certain amount of time, it's just a response to whoever
We'll also have a
happens to
public
show up.
hearing for our
Yeah.
fee schedule. There's a number of changes in the fees. We'll need a public hearing. Doesn't take long. I mean, I don't know who's all gonna show up, so I can't really,
The
how
9th
many
or 10th?
questions there may be.
The
Well, that's
2nd,
just it. We don't know.
the 2nd, 9th, 10th, any of them work?
Right now.
Second would work for me.
Yeah, I was gonna say December 2nd would be a good alternate
Does that work for you guys?
Wednesday,
December 2nd, we can do,
taxation?
6 o'clock.
we'll
6
send out
o'clock?
an invitation for you, for your
6
calendars.
o'clock.
Truth and taxation.
12/2, that's a Wednesday
Yep.
at 6 PM.
Here at the boardroom.
Yep.
That's what it is, truth and taxation.
Yep.
So you can just, someone
So-
can make a motion to
Do
approve.
we have a
that.
motion to have our truth and taxation
So
on
moved.
December 2nd at 6 PM? Motion by Commissioner Jelinski,
Second.
second by Commissioner Wilson. Any discussion? All in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
That's all I have. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Steve.
Mr. Chair, if I may, did we approve the county board warrants or did I miss that?
Yep.
Pay the bills? Did we do that?
Yep. Didn't we?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't remember though. Okay.
Mr. Chair, if I could, just on that topic that we just talked about, that meeting, we published and approved a schedule for December 10th, a Thursday, to be the board meeting, which we typically do because AMC's annual conference, which many of you attend and staff attends,
Oh.
is running through that time period, so I always change it from the Tuesday to the Thursday. However, they're not. So, is there the desire to change that from that Thursday to your typical Tuesday? Is that okay, or would you like to keep it the way it's at?
Move it back.
Move it back to the, if I could entertain a motion for that, and we'll change that schedule, that would be great.
Mr. Chair, I'd make a motion that we would replace that meeting back to the previous Tuesday.
From December 10th to December 8th. And could I get a second?
Second. Go ahead.
Motion made by Commissioner Blaine, second by Commissioner Jelinski. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Perfect, being creatures of habit, that's nice to keep
You
it
gonna send
simple.
that to us
Thank
too,
you,
then?
we will, we'll adjust that schedule. And Mr. Chair, if I could, looking at your calendars for next Tuesday, what is next Tuesday? The 29th, following the planning session, I'd like to call a building committee meeting. Is that, are you available to stay past that, just to kind of touch base on where we're at? We're wrapping up the building committee and want to kind of get you the information as to where we're sitting and standing.
September 29th?
Yep.
You said?
I
That'd be
can't
a-
for a while.
Okay, well, and it depends on when what the planning session agenda looks like, so I'll keep that in mind and then call one and see if we can't get that rolling. So
Okay.
just know that there will be an invitation coming once I can determine that. Just didn't want to schedule it without chatting with you first.
Okay.
All right.
Commissioner Jelinski, are you ready for your schedule?
Sure.
Are you done?
I'm done, thank you.
Sorry.
22nd.
What days?
So it's gonna be 3 weeks, we have 2 planning sessions in a row, so September 27th all the way through October 17th.
22nd. 17th.
Starting with the 28th, there should be a planning commission, but that's been canceled, I guess. The 29th at 8:30, we should have a planning meeting, followed by a building committee meeting. On the 30th, at 11 o'clock, I have a Central Minnesota Emergency Services Board Executive Committee meeting. And at 1 o'clock, I have a full board meeting. Both of those, I believe, are in St. Cloud. On the 1st of October at 10 o'clock in the morning, I have a State Emergency Communication Board Legislative Committee conference call. That's at my house. On the 2nd, at 8:30 in the morning, we have a TSWAC meeting. On the 6th of October, at 8:30 in the morning, we should have a planning meeting. I think it should be noted that at forget the time, that should have also been National Night Out, but I think that's all been canceled due to COVID. I don't know if there's any National Night Out things going on. I'm just not aware of it. At 7 o'clock at night, I believe we have Board of Adjustments. On the, nothing on the 7th. On the 8th at 6 PM, I have a Trails meeting. Zoom, I believe. I'm sorry, thank you. On the 10th, on the 9th, at 10 o'clock in the morning, there's a Central Minnesota Emergency Services Board RAC meeting. I believe that's also a Zoom meeting. Otherwise, it would be in Alexandria. On the 13th, at 9 o'clock in the morning, we should have County Board. At noon, there's a Toward Zero Death meeting, and that should be virtual on Zoom. If this is still going, and I'm not positive that it is, 5 o'clock that evening should be Kinship's Chili cook-off at the ballroom, but I'm not aware if that's on or off. On the 14th at 8:30 in the morning, there should be a department head meeting. On the 15th, at 10 o'clock in the morning, there should be a Central Minnesota Emergency Services Board Owners and Operators meeting. I believe that's going to be Zoom. At 7 o'clock that evening, I should have an Egg Society meeting. And Mr. Chair, I'm just about out of breath. That's it.
Commissioner Blaine?
Can't add a thing.
The 15th, I have airport possibly. Otherwise, that's it.
28th, HRA, 9 o'clock at HRA. Yep. And then you said to the 17th, right? The 12th, Yellow Ribbon, it's been virtual, but they're thinking maybe at the Viking Club, but I don't know until the day of. And then 14th, Public Health, and that's been virtual also. That's all I got. Commissioner Wincher?
The only thing else I have on the 28th, and anybody can join in, the Morrison County Historical Society is having a Zoom meeting at 7 PM. So if you want to join in, I have the number and they'll contact you. Otherwise, you got me covered.
All right, anything else, gentlemen?
I will mention the 4-H t-shirt day was moved to the 6th.
That's right.
The 6th of October.
It's a planning session, right? Yeah. Okay. Any other discussion, gentlemen? Motion by Commissioner Blaine,
Second.
second by Commissioner Wincher to adjourn. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Meeting adjourned.
Good job.